Most people imagine suffering as something dramatic: war, loss, disaster. But there is another kind of suffering that arrives quietly: a low-grade emptiness, a strange emotional flatness, a constant restlessness despite unprecedented convenience. We live in the most comfortable civilization in human history. Food arrives instantly, entertainment never ends, climate is adjustable. Almost every inconvenience has a digital solution. And yet, many people feel exhausted, disconnected, emotionally numb. It raises an uncomfortable question. What if comfort itself is reshaping the human psyche? Because human beings evolved in conditions filled with friction, movement, silence, effort, uncertainty, boredom, community. Modern life has systematically removed many of these experiences. The nervous system still carries ancient wiring inside futuristic environments. And sometimes it feels like our biology is wandering through modern life slightly disoriented. The strange irony of comfort is that it often removes the very things that make people feel alive. Effort creates satisfaction. Absence creates appreciation. Struggle creates meaning. When everything becomes frictionless, life can begin feeling emotionally weightless too. You can see this everywhere. People scroll endlessly through entertainment while feeling increasingly bored. They consume entire seasons of shows and barely remember them later. Meals become background activity. Vacations become content production. Even rest becomes optimized. Nothing settles deeply anymore. Experiences move through consciousness too quickly to leave fingerprints. And perhaps nowhere is this more visible than in our relationship with boredom. For most of human history, boredom was unavoidable. People walked long distances, waited, repeated tasks, sat quietly. Now boredom gets interrupted almost instantly. A phone appears, a notification arrives, a new video starts. And at first this feels harmless. But boredom once created psychological space. Space for reflection, for imagination, for emotional processing. Without boredom, consciousness becomes crowded. The modern mind rarely rests in stillness long enough to metabolize experience. Instead, it ricochets endlessly between fragments of stimulation. And over time, people begin confusing stimulation with aliveness. But stimulation is not vitality. Constant stimulation often dulls perception. When pleasure becomes endlessly available, pleasure becomes less satisfying. This is the paradox of abundance. The easier gratification becomes, the harder fulfillment becomes. Comfort also changes our relationship with difficulty. Many forms of ordinary discomfort that previous generations accepted as normal are now treated like system failures. Waiting feels intolerable. Silence feels awkward. Minor inconveniences trigger disproportionate frustration. The threshold for discomfort keeps shrinking. And paradoxically, the less discomfort people experience voluntarily, the less resilient they often become psychologically. Not because suffering is noble, some suffering destroys people, but manageable struggle develops capacities that comfort cannot: patience, adaptability, endurance, gratitude. A muscle unused eventually weakens. The same seems true for parts of the human spirit. There's a reason many people feel unexpectedly alive during difficult experiences. Long hikes, cold weather, learning hard skills, traveling somewhere unfamiliar, deep conversations that risk vulnerability. These experiences demand presence. Comfort often encourages passivity, and passive living creates a subtle psychological fog. Days blur together. Nothing feels memorable, because nothing required enough attention. The modern world increasingly encourages existence without participation. Food without cooking, connection without presence, entertainment without imagination, validation without intimacy. Life arrives prepackaged. But human beings do not seem psychologically designed for entirely frictionless existence. Even our happiest memories usually contain texture, effort, risk, imperfection. Almost nobody remembers the easiest day of their life. People remember the exhausting road trip, the freezing night around the fire, the difficult season that changed them. Because intensity creates memory, and modern comfort often protects people from intensity. This softness extends into emotional life too. Many people now structure their lives around avoiding discomfort entirely. Avoid awkward conversations, avoid rejection, silence, uncertainty, solitude. Entire digital ecosystems exist to reduce friction from human experience. Dating apps reduce vulnerability into swiping. Algorithms reduce discovery into prediction. Streaming reduces patience into instant gratification. Everything bends toward immediacy. But immediate relief is not always healthy. Sometimes discomfort is information. Sometimes it's growth. Sometimes it's the nervous system adapting instead of escaping. The problem is that modern life increasingly treats every uncomfortable emotion like something that must be neutralized immediately. Sad? Distract yourself. Lonely? Scroll. Restless? Consume. Bored? Refresh. The result is that many people lose the ability to sit inside ordinary emotion states without escaping them. And that creates fragility. Because a person who cannot tolerate temporary discomfort becomes dependent on constant soothing. The modern world profits enormously from that dependence. But discomfort is woven into meaningful existence. Love contains discomfort. Growth contains discomfort. Honesty and creativity contain discomfort. To remove all friction from life would also remove many experiences that make life emotionally rich. Perhaps this is why so many people secretly crave simpler forms of living, not abandoning civilization, just existence with more texture, cooking meals slowly, walking more, being unreachable for a few hours, owning fewer things, feeling weather again. These desires are often dismissed as nostalgia, but underneath them may be something deeper, a craving for direct experience. Because comfort places layers between people and reality. Screens separate us from presence. Convenience separates us from effort. Algorithms separate us from uncertainty. Eventually, life can start feeling strangely synthetic. Safe, efficient, optimized, but emotionally distant. And perhaps one of the greatest hidden costs of modern comfort is the disappearance of appreciation. When abundance becomes constant, gratitude weakens. Warm water stops feeling miraculous. Food becomes expectation. Entertainment becomes background noise. The nervous system adapts quickly to convenience. What once felt luxurious becomes psychologically invisible. People continue increasing comfort, while emotional satisfaction remains strangely stagnant. Comfort without peace, abundance without fulfillment, connection without intimacy, stimulation without joy. The nervous system receives constant input while the soul remains underfed. And maybe this is why moments of voluntarily difficulty can feel strangely restorative now. Exercise, cold water, long walks, deep focus, time away from technology. Not because suffering itself is virtuous, but because intentional friction reconnects people with reality. It reminds the nervous system that it can't tolerate life without constant buffering. Maybe real balance lies somewhere between brutality and endless ease. A life with enough comfort to feel safe, enough difficulty to feel alive, enough silence to hear yourself think, enough effort to appreciate rest. Because a meaningful life is probably not one without discomfort. It is one where discomfort serves something larger. Love, growth, presence, connection. Modern culture often treats discomfort as evidence that something has gone wrong. But sometimes discomfort is evidence that something real is happening. A difficult conversation, a creative risk, an honest moment, a challenge that stretches identity. Those experiences may not feel comfortable, but they often feel alive. And perhaps that is what many people are truly starving for now. Not more convenience, not more entertainment, not another optimized life system. Something textured, something grounding, something real. A return to reality before everything became frictionless. Because human beings still seem to need certain forms of resistance to feel fully awake. Like muscles needing weight, like forests needing weather, maybe the soul needs a little friction too. That's all for today. As always, thanks for watching. See you the next time, and until then, stay free and unique on your journey to your personal true north.